Let's head into our NBA power ranking. So we talked about the games from last night. We bet on the games tonight. Now let's head over to our power rankings, where we update it for the first time since the All-Star break, folks. So we do this every Friday. We take a week of action, reorder the power rankings, and then wait a week, see how the week plays out, and do the same thing. We do this every week on Fridays. Now, these power rankings that you are seeing right here, folks, these are what we had at the All-Star break. A couple days before the resumption of the season, we talked through all the teams and all that, and we came up with this top 10 at the All-Star break, and here it is. Raptors at 10, Mavs at 9, Celtics at 8, Cavs at 7, Bucks at 6, Jazz at 5, Warriors at 4, 76ers at 3, Grizzlies at 2, and the Suns, the number 1 team in the NBA, at the All-Star break. Now, it's been a week since the resumption of the season, last Thursday to this Friday, March 4th. So, let's reorder, and folks, we've got a lot of shake-up here, and we said this at the top of the show, folks, but we are taking this first week back into big-time consideration, and we are weighing this week of games that all these teams played. We are weighing this week very heavily. You had a week to prepare, a week off. Getting fresh, getting kind of acclimated to the final stretch, making that playoff push here. And some teams showed out fantastic, and some teams really floundered, not taking advantage of their kind of easier schedule here this week and losing some really winnable games for most of these teams. So weighing what we just saw this week, very, very heavy in our power rankings, and with that comes a ton of shakeup. We got 3 new teams in the top 10. We have a new number 1. I'll say it right here. We have a new number 1, and we've got some big jumps all over the place. So, before we start reordering the top 10 here, I want to tell you why we are removing the teams that we are removing. So, we've got 3 teams out, so 3 new teams as well. Shout out to those new teams. But the 3 teams that we are moving out, and because of why, first team is the Raptors at number 10. They are out of the top 10. They have gone through this skid, this streak. Yes, they haven't been the healthiest. Some players in and out of the lineup here over the last week of games, but that's what we love about the Raptors. Nick Nurse getting the best out of the role players, and we have not gotten that. They went 2-3 in their 5 games this week. They beat the Nets twice. All right, it's the Nets. I mean, it's unfortunate, but the Nets are a trash team. So beating them twice, the second game only winning by 1 point, not the greatest there. And then you lose to the Hornets, the Hawks, and the Pistons, who are literally all turning the corner since that All-Star break. So unfortunate for the Raptors, and I know no Fred VanVleet for a couple of games. No OG Anunoby for a couple of games. We get it, but at the end of the day, I mean, what makes a good team is their depth as well and overcoming. We just saw the Celtics overcome with no Jaylen Brown last night and look really good while doing so. So it's unfortunate, but the Raptors do have to be kicked out of the top 10 here. Obviously, they can work their way back, but they're going to have to get it done. They are going to have to get it done before they crack the top 10 again. So Raptors out at number 10. We are removing the Cavs from the top 10. The number 7 Cavs here. Not a great week. They went 1-3 this week, beating the Wizards. Once again, all right, not the greatest win, but then losing to the Pistons, the Timberwolves, and the Hornets. Once again, all teams turning the corner, looking real good, and this Cavs team just not looking as dominant like they were before the All-Star break. And once again, no Darius Garland, no Karis LeVert for a couple games. We understand it, but once again, we got to look at the depth and who's going to step up, the role players stepping up, and Jared Allen letting us down, with him being kind of the main guy out on the floor for the majority of these games here because of the injuries. We don't get Jared Allen stepping up. So, you're now superstar. You're big, not getting it done in a bigs world, not getting it done, leaving a real bad taste in our mouth. So, Cavs got to move them outside the top 10 as well. And then the last team we are just being done with, folks, and this team was in the top 5, and we're moving them out, folks. We are done with the nonsense. We're not putting up with any nonsense, and so far this Warriors team at number 4 has been showing us a lot of nonsense as of recently. They went 1-3 this last week, beating the Blazers. Once again, a Nurkic-less Blazers team, that's nothing. So they beat the Blazers, not that good of a win. Losing to the Mavericks twice is concerning because the Mavericks are beating the Warriors at their own game, out shooting them from 3. That's all the Mavericks do, folks. They got rid of Porzingis at the trade deadline. They don't really have bigs anymore. They are an outside shooting team, living and dying, and they are living for the most part here, beating the Warriors at their own game. Kevon Looney, no Draymond Green. I mean, they've got no bigs. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson can't splash brother their way back into kind of, winning against the great teams. Jordan Poole still giving us great performances, but not enough to win these games. So I'm done with the nonsense for the Warriors here. I'm moving them all the way from number 4 outside the top 10 until we get Draymond Green back, until we start getting some better big play by this Warriors team. They will not be in the top 10, folks. Steph Curry not getting it done, not being as explosive, not being able to single-handedly win games like we've seen them be able to do in the past. Done with the Warriors at number 4. Get them out of here, folks. Get them out of here. So, Raptors, Cavs, Warriors, all out of the top 10 here, but that just means 3 new teams, so we could definitely cheer and champion those new teams hitting the top 10. So, with all that being said, let's start to reorder our top 10. Here we go. Let's start at number 10 here, and this is where our first new team comes in, folks. The new number 10 team is the Miami Heat. All right, just getting inside the top 10 here. They went 4-1 over their last 5 games this week. They beat the Knicks, the Spurs, the Bulls, and the Nets. Now, these aren't the greatest wins overall. Needed a team here to kind of fill in. This was kind of the best team that we saw so far. The Spurs are kind of okay. The Bulls are just kind of okay. The Knicks are trash. And the Nets, once again, they're trash as well. Why we have them at number 10 is because their loss against the Bucks, and really we would have moved this Heat team higher than 10 if they beat that Bucks team. They had the lead. They beefed it down late in that game, having like a 7-8 point lead with 3 minutes left and still beefing it, only losing by 1. We have a bad taste with this Heat team in our mouth. But kind of going 4-1 is solid, beating the teams that they should be beating, being competitive against, the upper echelon tier teams, the playoff caliber, championship caliber teams like the Bucks. So we're going to give this Heat team a little bit of a free pass of beefing it against the Bucks because they were competitive. But I mean, that's like the last free pass we're giving the Heat really for the entire year, especially with Victor Oladipo coming back on Monday. There's no more free passes. So we're going to give the Heat the benefit of the doubt of beefing the game against the Bucks. Once again, we reorder these every Friday, so on Monday we'll be able to kind of see with Victor Oladipo, and there's no more excuses. So we'll give this Heat team the benefit of the doubt. We'll give them a little bit of a springboard here at number 10 to see how this week plays out with Victor Oladipo. But if it's not good, we'll redrop them outside the top 10. But if it's great, we can definitely see them start climbing. So Heat getting the 10th seed here. Just winning last night really kind of secured their top 10 with no Jimmy Butler, with no Kyle Lowry, and Duncan Robinson not doing really anything and having kind of their depth play and Bam Adebayo be aggressive and all that and taking care of business last night. So we give this Heat team the number 10 seed in our power rankings. Alrighty, so Heat at 10. Here we go. New number 9 team here. A new team in the top 10. We are going the Timberwolves. Yeah, love their big 3. Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns. Anthony Edwards has kind of been letting us down the last couple of games. Only putting up like less than 10 points in that kind of 3-game stretch that he had, the little bit of a funk that he went through, but the Timberwolves were still winning games with Anthony Edwards kind of floundering, so shout out to the depth of the Timberwolves starting to kind of emerge a little bit. over the last week for the Timberwolves. They went 3-1, beating the Grizzlies, beating the Cavs, beating the Warriors, getting blown out by the 76ers. That game, it was on a back-to-back, so we can give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Not a huge benefit of the doubt because it was a big blowout, like a 25-plus blowout loss for the Timberwolves. But, I mean, beating the Grizzlies, that's an upper echelon team. The Cavs, the Warriors, those were all teams in our top 10 heading into this week. And the Timberwolves really kind of took care of business. Really no problem. So, loving the emergence here of the Timberwolves. What are they in their last 10? Because they are making their way here in the conference standings. 6-4 in their last 10. I mean, just about 2.5 games back from that 6th seed of cracking the top 6 and not having to play in the play-in tournament. So Timberwolves rising here. Watch out for this Timberwolves team. Once Anthony Edwards truly gets back on track here, this Timberwolves team is looking to kind of shoot up in the power rankings, shoot up in the standings, and this is going to be a tough out for any team that has to face this Timberwolves team in the playoffs at any point in time. So love the Timberwolves here, and we put them at number 9. Alrighty, number 8 team, and we're moving this team up just a tad, one spot here. Really kind of looking to move this team up a little bit more, but compared to what everybody else did this week, we have to just take it a little bit light and a little bit slow because their opponents this week weren't anything special. But the new number 8 team is going to be the Mavericks. They move up from number 9 to number 8 here. Now, for the Mavericks this week, they had a little bit of an easy week here. They went 3-1 this week. They beat the Lakers and the Warriors twice. We know the Warriors aren't that good of a team. That's why we moved them out of the top 10. And beating the Lakers, they're a trash team as well. They lost to the Jazz, who's a very good team, but they only lost by 5. So kept it competitive against that Jazz team, all of that. Beating the teams and kind of dominating the teams, beat the Warriors back-to-back games, or I think they had a game break, but overall playing the same team 2 times in a week. I mean, you expect the other team to kind of figure out and, change what they did to be competitive, and we didn't get that at all by the Warriors. Kind of Mavericks blew them out twice, so Mavericks looking good. Luka Doncic, the 3-point barrage that is this Mavericks team. I mean, really kind of we are in the bigs world right now where you need a dominant big to be competitive, to be consistent in this league, folks. And the Mavericks don't have that. They just got rid of Porzingis. This is the only team that is truly living by the 3-point shot. There's a lot of teams that live and die by the 3-point shot. The Warriors, and they've been dying by that 3-point shot as of recently. But this Mavericks team is living by it, folks. Currently, this Mavericks team is 5th in the Western Conference, climbing up the ranks here because of the 3-point shot. 8-2 in their last 10, getting it done. Warriors are 3-7 in their last 10. So you still need a big here, but the Mavericks are the one kind of defying that narrative. So shout out to the Mavericks. They are consistent. They're getting it done. Luka Doncic is looking fantastic, like always, and they're continuing to get better and continuing to kind of be competitive and beat the upper echelon team. So Mavericks, we'd move you up a little bit more if you had some more solid wins this week, but overall you took care of business when you every single game. So we got to give some credit to that, and we move them up 1 seed here. Alrighty, here we go. New number 7 team and the final new team in the top 10 this week. We are going the Pelicans. Yes, sir, we are taking the Pelicans here. And once again, real interesting. We just bet on the Pelicans +4 against the Jazz this week. So this is going to be a huge, monumental top 10 matchup tonight with the Pelicans at home plus the 4 points. And I think they can take care of business. And that's going to play a huge part next week in our power rankings, depending on who wins this game, Pelicans or the Jazz. We haven't gotten to the Jazz yet. You can see they are in the top 6, but look for them to be a little bit higher than lower if you catch my drift. We'll get to that in a minute, folks. But back to the Pelicans here at number 7. Love their big 3, and yes, it is an official big 3, folks. Do not disrespect this Pelicans team. Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, and CJ McCollum. That is a big three that needs big three levels of respect. They got the big, they got the defense intermediate game of Brandon Ingram, and then they got the outside scoring ability of CJ McCollum, and then you sprinkle in a Jackson Hayes every now and then. That just truly completes this Pelicans team. Love everything about them, and they've been winning, folks. In the last week, the Pelicans, they have gone 3-0, all blowout wins against the Suns, the Lakers, and the Kings, folks. 15-point plus wins on all those teams. Yes, the Lakers and the Kings aren't good, but they blew them out by like 20 plus, and then they face the Suns, and yes, no Chris Paul, but they still beat them by 15. They're taking care of business and not apologizing while doing so, and now they've got this Jazz team next up, folks, ready to kind of be like, hey, we're ready to keep up this 15-plus point win streak here and beating a really good Jazz deep team. So Pelicans, shout out to them. Shout out to the Pelicans +4 tonight, and we got them sitting here at number 7, folks. Love this Pelicans team. Alrighty, here we go. Let's keep climbing. The new number 6 team is going to stay the Bucks. Bucks do not move. They stay at number 6 for the week, really because they lost to the Nets. I mean, they're 2-1 over the last week. They beat the Hornets and the Heat. Should have lost to the Heat, but a good comeback in the fourth quarter. We give the Bucks some respect for that. But then losing to the Nets is never acceptable. That was no Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was not playing at that time, so losing to the Nets is inexcusable. They are really bad. They're really bad, and the Bucks are too good to be losing against trash teams like the Nets. Yes, folks, the Nets are trash. They're not in the top 10. I have no interest in putting them inside the top 10. Kevin Durant couldn't get it done last night with nobody, facing nobody on that Heat team. No Jimmy Butler, no Kyle Lowry, and Kevin Durant couldn't get it done himself. I mean, this is really not a good Nets team, folks. So not going to have the Nets in the top 10 anytime soon until they kind of prove it to us. I don't know what kind of the national media's top 10 is at the current moment, but I would expect them to put the Nets in the top 10 and force them in the top 10 for some reason because they have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant on the team, even though they can't play together and all that, but we digress. But the Bucks will give them one more week to truly show what they are capable of. Once again, we are a little concerned on the Bucks of not having that good guard depth there. We think that's really going to be the crux of the Bucks as we move to the playoffs and all that. So Bucks, we'll leave them at number 6 for one more week, see what they can do, but got to start beating the good teams and not get out of these kind of close wins, close losses, and all that, and start to see some explosive blowout performances like we just got by the Pelicans all week long. So Bucks stay at number 6. Alrighty, new number 5 team here, and this team is falling, folks, big time. The Grizzlies fall from number 2 to number 5, and once again, I think I was a little bit influenced by the just the bombardment of the Grizzlies and Ja Morant propaganda that is all over the national media, folks. This last week has not been great for the Grizzlies, but if you are just checking social media and just checking ESPN, you would think the Grizzlies have gone like 5-0 this last week, beating like the Suns and the 76ers back-to-back and the Bucks and all these great teams, but that is the furthest thing from the truth, folks. They are 2-2 in their last 4 games. They beat the Bulls and the Spurs. We know the Spurs aren't good, and we know the Bulls aren't good. The Bulls are not a good team overall, folks. They do not beat the good teams, and if you do not beat the good teams, that means you are not a good team. So the Bulls are not a good team, so they beat 2 not great teams out there, and then they lost to the Timberwolves and the Celtics, 2 emerging teams. We just have the Timberwolves at number 9. You don't see the Celtics on here yet because that's how high they are. This Celtics team is a great team, and this Grizzlies team not beating the Celtics last night with no Jaylen Brown, and then the backup Nesmith only playing 5 minutes before he gets injured, and the Celtics were still able to overcome all of that and win, dominating 10-plus point win for the Celtics last night. Grizzlies, a little bit too much Ja Morant focus. Their three-point shooting is not consistent and not that great, and if Ja Morant is not leading in every single category, the Grizzlies don't have the greatest chance to win. So we're starting to potentially see the true Grizzlies out here this week. We'll see how they kind of make up for this lackluster week next week, this upcoming week starting today, Friday to Friday. So Grizzlies, let's see, are they actually a good team, or have we fallen victim to a little bit of propaganda? And propaganda gets the best of everybody at some point, folks. That's what propaganda is supposed to do. If propaganda never worked, then there would be no propaganda because everybody sees through it. But there's a lot of propaganda. Especially in today's day, folks, propaganda. I could do a whole, if we weren't just a sports show, folks, I would do a whole hour on just propaganda. But we'll keep it sports propaganda. And so far, folks, Grizzlies. Let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look. Let's go to ESPN's Twitter account and just count how many posts are Ja Morant and the Grizzlies in maybe the last couple of days. And once again, given they've only been 2-2 this week, there's really no reason to be shouting out Ja Morant in the Grizzlies as much. Actually, Twitter's a little bombarded. Should we just go to Instagram? But let's quickly do the Twitter here. How many they're playing hockey highlights? I don't think I've ever seen hockey come up on my feed, so I don't know where all these are coming from. But let's go to ESPN's Instagram. Let's go to ESPN's Instagram. Let's go to that quickly and see how many posts are with Ja Morant and the Grizzlies and all that. Can we get to this? All right, latest post was somebody's mom in the stands at a Cavs game or Cavs Summer League game. All right, next post. This was 2 hours ago. Here it is. Ja Morant. There it is. A highlight of Ja Morant last night losing against the Celtics. No word on the Celtics. They just compared it to a D Rose lob and slam. That's one post on Ja Morant. Another post here is we get Reggie Jackson crossing over Russell Westbrook. But I mean, folks, when was the last time the Celtics have been posted? The Celtics have not been posted in months, folks. Days, folks. But we get Ja Morant in the Grizzlies. Big dunk by Ja Morant. But no chirp, no peep of the Celtics last night. So that's what I'm saying, folks. A little bit of propaganda out here. Let's propagandize the Celtics because they deserve to be propagandized because they're that goddamn good. So all that being said, Grizzlies at number 5, and we'll see, are they the real deal or not? We'll get a little bit more information this upcoming week. Let's take a look. What is their schedule? What is their schedule here for this upcoming week that this kind of Grizzlies team can potentially show us that they are actually a good team? Let's quickly see. Grizzlies for the next upcoming week. Next couple of games, we got the Magic, the Rockets, and the Pelicans and the Knicks. I mean, that's kind of their next 4 games there, so not the greatest competition. We'll see what they do up against the Pelicans. That's going to be their biggest test this upcoming week, what they can do against the Pelicans, and they better make it count. All right, Grizzlies at number 5. All right, new number 4 team. Once again, no longer the Warriors. They are out of the top 10. And this team dropping from the number 1 seed to the number 4 seed in our power rankings. The Suns are the new number 4 team. And once again, no Chris Paul. We think they can, kind of overcome it a little bit, but how long are they going to be able to do that? Chris Paul out, a game here, a game there. Yeah, absolutely. The Suns would have no problem overcoming it. But now Cameron Payne has to kind of be the guy, be the main facilitator and a solid scoring piece, which he can be. We know he can be, but how long can he keep it up? We know Chris Paul's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So Cameron Payne has, one good game, one good week stretch of games. That's not going to cut it. We are going to need to see Cameron Payne truly get it done for the long haul here. But the last week for the Suns hasn't been that great. They beat the Thunder and the Blazers. Once again, not two good teams. But then they lose to the Pelicans and the Jazz. These are good teams. Pelicans up and rising. Number 7. Jazz have yet to be seen here. So they're in the top 3. But overall, the Suns they're the top. They've got the best record in the NBA, folks. So we have to see them be good. Even without Chris Paul, Devin Booker is going to have to step it up even more out here. The role players are going to have to step it up even more. DeAndre Ayton is going to have to step it up at the big position. We just saw Bam Adebayo last night. No Jimmy Butler, no Kyle Lowry, and Bam Adebayo goes to the 4 and puts up 30-plus points and is the leading scorer. DeAndre Ayton, you're going to have to kind of do something along those lines here. We're going to need Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton to both step it up more with the absence of Chris Paul out here, and they haven't been doing that as great as kind of I need them to be. So we dropped the Suns down from number 1 to number 4. Alrighty, now here we go. New number 3 team is not a new number 3 team. We are keeping the 76ers here at number 3. Really good week. Good week. Not the best quality of wins, but they're wins nonetheless, and they did not lose all week. So we got to respect that by the 76ers. James Harden comes, and the big 3 of James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid getting it done. And yes, that is a big 3. That is an official big 3. Do not disrespect them. Do not disrespect Tyrese Maxey, but not saying he's big 3 material. He is. So 76ers staying at number 3 here this last week. They beat the Knicks twice. Not that hard. Now, what is impressive, they were down against the Knicks. Knicks had the lead in the first half for the majority, and the 76ers come roaring back and win by double digits every single time, getting it done in the fourth quarter, staying in the course. James Harden, Joel Embiid just, grinding first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, both of those Knicks games, and it pays off with double-digit wins in the fourth quarter. So shout out to the 76ers on that. So we keep them at number 3, and then they also beat the Timberwolves. Really solid, emerging Timberwolves team, and they really blew them out by like 30 points. So really impressive by the 76ers here. Once again, their depth is going to be the biggest question moving forward, but so far they are making it work, and they just brought in DeAndre Jordan, so hopefully that kind of increases them as well. So 76ers staying at number 3 for the week, and we'll see what they do this week to see if they can crack the top 2. Alrighty, new number 2 team, folks, and yeah, I was close to putting this team number 1. I'll take it a tad slow with this team, but I mean, they keep showing out like they showed out this week, this upcoming week. Yeah, the Celtics team will be number 1 next week, so watch out for the Celtics. And the Celtics, hey, prove to us this week you can get it done, and we'll have you at that number 1 spot come next Friday. But I'm putting the Boston Celtics at number 2, folks. What a jump, what a climb from 8 at the start of this week to 2 at the end of this week. Well done to the Celtics, beating teams, beating quality teams, beating the Grizzlies last night with no Jaylen Brown. That is so big time impressive, folks. Over this last week, they went 4-1. They beat the Nets, the Pistons, the Hawks, and the Grizzlies. They lost to the Pacers. Now that Pacers loss is a really alarming loss, I will say that, but beating the Grizzlies last night with no Jaylen Brown, that is really what we needed to see. That is the true identity of the Celtics. Grinding defense, Marcus Smart getting it done, solid points, facilitating the floor. Jason Tatum has no problem being the superstar on the team. He is always, even with Jaylen Brown on the floor. So it just freed up Jason Tatum to do what he needed to do last night. Al Horford, the bigs. This is a bigs world, folks. Al Horford, the second leading scorer for the Celtics last night against a Grizzlies team, shutting down the Grizzlies, not letting them kind of regain the lead. Like we said, there was only 2 lead changes in the entire game, and none came in the fourth quarter. Celtics closing out games, double-digit lead, great defense. Shout out to the head coach, folks, of keeping the Celtics team right. The addition of Derek White has been fantastic. Grant Williams giving us great games, for the last week. Fantastic. Everything about this Celtics team is great, folks. They are consistent. They are well coached. They've got a superstar. The bigs are getting it done. Not the greatest depth, not the deepest team in the league, but still finding ways to get the point production, to get the defense going, and to beat the better teams in the league. Celtics are at 2, and they are literally this close. The only thing that is separating the number 2 Celtics to the number 1 team that we are about to unveil is really just the depth ability. This number 1 team has a lot more depth than the Celtics, and that's really the only reason why they are the number 1 team. So the Celtics, if you can keep it going this week, let's see what the Celtics have on tap this week, because if they get one great opponent and they can can beat them, I'll put them in the number 1 seed this next week. Absolutely. Next week of games, they only play two more games, really. They only play 2 more games. They play on Friday, but, we'll be doing our power rankings before that game is played. But their next 2 games are just the Nets and the Hornets. Then they face the Pistons, the Mavs, the Warriors, the Kings, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Jazz. They face the Jazz on the 23rd, and that's going to be the big game. And why is that going to be the big game? Because the number 1 seed is the Jazz. So it may be hard for the Celtics team to take that number 1 seed before the 23rd, but it is still possible. That 23rd, yeah. The 23rd we will do. If these are still the top 2 teams come the 23rd, whoever wins that game, we will make it an impromptu change to the power rankings to the number 1 team of whoever wins that game. But the number 1 seed is the Jazz, folks. The deep Jazz. So deep, and they had a really good week. Jazz this week, 3-0. They beat the Mavs, the Suns, and the Rockets. We know the Mavs are good. We know the Suns are good. We know the Rockets aren't good. But, hey, they took care of business doing what they had to do. After the All-Star break, everybody healthy, winning games, looking good while doing so, beating the better teams in this league. Donovan Mitchell getting it done. Rudy Gobert, once again, he's not a tier 1 big, nothing special, but just classic Rudy Gobert. And classic Rudy Gobert has been able to make it work for the last couple of seasons. Defensive Player of the Year, Jazz getting, high seeds in the playoffs and all that. So it's still getting it done. And then you bring in, you keep Jordan Clarkson, obviously. Great, 6-man, great depth ability on the bench. Rudy Gay, Hassan Whiteside, deep dish pizza, folks. Then you still got Bogdanovich and Mike Conley and Royce O'Neal. I mean, there's just so many players on this Jazz team. They're deep and they're healthy, and they're winning games, and we really can't say that with everybody else in the top 10. Celtics not as deep as the Jazz. 76ers not as deep as the Jazz. Suns not as healthy as the Jazz. Grizzlies not as good consistently as the Jazz. Grizzlies are a little deep like the Jazz, but not as consistent. Starters bench like the Jazz. The Bucks are not as deep as the Jazz. The Pelicans are not as deep as the Jazz. The Mavericks, they're deep with 3-point shooters. They just don't have like a Rudy Gobert. The Timberwolves, not as deep as the Jazz and the Heat. They're deep. They're good. They're solid. Not as consistent as the Jazz. So the Jazz, the number 1 team in the league here. They're healthy and they're deep, and that's all you need. And it's unfortunate, but that's what basketball is. A long season, 82 games, and then 7-game playoff series and all that. Really, whoever wins the championship is usually the deepest, healthiest team. And at this point, a week after the All-Star break, the Jazz are the deepest, healthiest team. They beat the Suns this week. They beat the Mavs this week because they're deep and because they're healthy, and that's why the Jazz are number 1 here, folks. They're still good. I mean, these are still ballers. They're just not scrubs that are healthy, folks. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Bohan Bogdanovich getting it done. So love this Jazz team. Deep dish pizza, folks. And once again, Hassan Whiteside, the big depth. Rudy Gay is now a bench option. How crazy is that? So shout out to the Jazz. Shout out to Donovan Mitchell for doing his thing, folks. Still fantastic. Facilitator, scorer, leader, clutcher. He does it all, folks. Jazz are the number 1 team. Alrighty, so our new top 10 in the NBA re-updated next Friday. Before this week, we are rocking with the Heat at 10, the Timberwolves at 9, the Mavs at 8, the Pelicans at 7, the Bucks at 6, the Grizzlies at 5, the Suns at 4, the 76ers at 3, the Celtics at 2, and the Jazz at number 1, folks. New top 10 in the NBA. Alright, so we'll see how this week plays out in the NBA and revisit this next week, folks.